The Broncos take on the Jets, 8:20 p.m. Eastern start time on Thursday Night Football. The Broncos are the 3-point favorite on the road. Totals 40 points. We're 4-2 in our last 6 NFL tier package plays on patreon.com/BrockPage. We're also hitting at 67% for the entire 2020 season in that very same membership as well. For more information on how you can access these exclusive premium sports picks, a link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/BrockPage. Now, the Jets are plus $1.30 for an outright win at home. Having said that, though, the Jets are a winless 0-3 on the season. Hasn't even come close to covering a point spread either. New York's averaging just a dozen points per contest, and they're throwing for less than 180 yards a game. Sam Darnold's been sacked 6 times on the season, and he's thrown 4 interceptions. The Jets are averaging less than 90 yards a game on the ground, and they rank in the bottom 3 in the league in yards per play. Now, New York scored just 3 total points in the second quarter for the entire season. Meanwhile, defensively, that's been a nightmare as well, as the Jets are giving up 31 a game and over $130 on the ground. Now, Crowder, Jenkins, Fant, Wilson, Becton, and Davis are all questionable for Thursday night's contest, and Perriman has been ruled out with an ankle. They're taking on a Denver club who's covered 2 out of their last 3, including marquee covers over the likes of Pittsburgh and Tennessee. Very good covers for him in those contests there. The Broncos are they're ranking in the top 10 and fewest rush yards allowed per contest. Alexander Johnson leads the team in tackles with 23. Justin Simmons also has 22 tackles on the season, 2 pass deflections, and an interception. The Broncos defense also ranks in the top 10 and fewest third quarter points allowed, top 10 and fewest fourth quarter points allowed as well. Very good defensively in the second half. Now keep an eye on the following guys as they've been listed as questionable for Denver. Jackson, Atiochu, Harris, Callahan, Wilkinson, Harris, and Lindsey could possibly miss the game with injuries. And when it comes to the total in this one, the Broncos are coming fresh off a contest with the Bucs that fell under the posted total. Just 38 total points in that affair. The Denver Broncos are officially 2-1 to the unders thus far in the season, and that includes a 16-14 contest with the Titans in their season opener. Now, the Jets, on the other side, they're coming off a Week 3 contest with the Colts that stayed under the number themselves. New York scored just 7 points in that game, by the way. So with all that said and done, give me the Denver Broncos -3 and the under 40 points in that game. And before we go ahead and move on, just want to take another quick timeout and welcome you to the video. Got some lines and personal leans out for NFL Week 4. But before we go ahead and dive into some more free content right here on YouTube, I just want to quickly remind you once again that we are 4-2 in our last 6 NFL tier package plays on patreon.com/BrockPage. We're also hitting at 67% for the entire 2020 season in that same package as well. If you want some more information on how you can join in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/BrockPage. And moving on, we're going to take a look at the Steelers-Titans 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff on Sunday. The Steelers are the 1.5-point favorite on the road. Totals 47. Pittsburgh's 3-0 on the season, 2-1 against the number. They've scored 26 points or more in all 3 contests, and they rank in the top 10 in offensive time of possession. The Steelers are gaining nearly 140 yards per game on the ground. James Conner's rushed for 224 yards on this season. He's averaging nearly 6 yards a carry. He's also run it in the end zone twice. The Steelers defensively rank in the top 3 in rush yards allowed per contest. They're also in the top 3 in yards allowed per play. The Steeler defense is allowing just 19 points a game. Now, Mike Hilton leads the team in tackles with 21. He also has a couple of sacks, a fumble recovery, and he also has an interception. Now, Devin Bush also has 18 tackles on the year, half a sack for Devin, and 3 pass breakups. The Steeler defense is giving up less than 4.5 fourth quarter points per contest. They're taking on a Titans squad who's failed to cover the point spread in all three of their contests this season. 0-3 against the spread for the entire year, despite their undefeated straight-up record. Now, Tennessee ranks in the top 10 in most pass yards allowed per game, top 3 in most rush yards allowed as well. This Titans defense is allowing nearly 170 yards a game on the ground. They're also in the top 3 in the league in most yards allowed per play. Now keep an eye on Lewan, Brown, Roberson, and Jackson, as they are all listed as questionable. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, the Titans' last 2 games both got over the posted number. They gave up 30 to the Jags and the Vikings in those contests respectively. Tennessee's gone 6-1 to the over in their last 7 games at Nissan Stadium as well. Meanwhile, the Steelers on the other side, they saw their last 2 games get over the line as well. Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers minus 1.5 and the over 47 points in that game. Next contest, Chargers Buccaneers, and that's going to be a 1 p.m. Eastern start time. The Bucs are minus 7.5, totals 45. And if you like Los Angeles in an upset here, they're plus 285 for some money line cash. And despite some tough back-to-back losses, the Chargers have successfully covered the number in 2 out of their last 3 ball games. LA ranks in the top 3 in the league in offensive time of possession. They're also rushing for nearly 155 yards on the ground per game. Austin Eckler's averaging 5 yards a carry. He's also rushed for 236 yards already for the season. Also can't forget about Josh Kelly, who's carried it 43 times for the Chargers for $167 and a score. And believe it or not, this Charger offense ranks in the top 10 in pass yards per game as well. They're throwing for 274 per contest. Justin Herbert's completing 70% of his passes, 641 yards already, and a couple of scores. Keenan Allen has been his favorite target, 24 catches, 265, and a touchdown reception. And of course, we cannot forget about the big tight end. I'm talking about Hunter Henry, who's caught it 16 times for 206 yards. This Charger defense also ranks in the top 10 in fewest pass yards allowed per contest, top 10 in fewest yards allowed per play. LA is giving up just 19 points per contest on the season. Kenneth Murray leads the club with 23 total tackles. Joey Bosa has 3 sacks. And Michael Davis also leads the secondary with a pair of interceptions. Now this Charger D is giving up just 4.6 points in the fourth quarter for the season. And when it comes to the injury report, keep an eye on Balaga, Vigil, and Jackson as they've been listed as questionable. But regardless, LA is taking on a Tampa squad who's averaging less than 95 yards on the ground per game. The Bucs also rank in the bottom 10 in yards gained per play. Tampa's leading rusher is averaging less than 3.9 yards per carry. And if this game comes down to the wire, just keep in mind that the Bucs rank in the bottom 5 in fourth quarter scoring. Now Watson is questionable. Godwin is doubtful. Tampa is coming off a game with Denver that stayed under the posted total. Meanwhile, the Chargers on the other side, they've gone 3-0 to the under for the entire season. No overs for them. So with all that said and done, give me the LA Chargers plus 7.5 and the under 45 in that game. Next matchup, Colts-Bears, 1 p.m. East. The Colts are the 2.5-point favorite on the road. Totals 45. And if you like the Bears in an outright win at home here, they're plus $1.20 to win this one straight up. And despite going 3-0 thus far on the season, how many times can the Bears pull the rabbit out of the hat this season? Really improbable victories. They finally settled down with Nick Foles, who, as good as he's been in certain spots in his career, he hasn't taken a whole lot of snaps with this Bears team. The Bears rank in the bottom 10 in yards per play offensively, while defensively they also rank in the top half of the league in most pass yards allowed per game. The Chicago defense is also giving up nearly 120 yards on the ground per game as well. They gave up 26 to the Falcons and 23 to the Lions. Tarek Cohen's out for the season. Jenkins is on the IR with a hand injury. Chicago's in the top 10 in most third quarter points allowed. They are taking on a Colts squad who, don't sleep on them, they're 2-0 against the number in their past couple of games. They easily covered the point spread against the Jets and the Vikings, respectively. They also rank in the top 3 in offensive time of possession, top 10 in yards per play on average as well. The Colts are throwing for nearly 265 yards a game. Phillip Rivers is completing 78% of his passes, 3 touchdowns, sacked only twice. He's also thrown for nearly 800 yards already in the season. One of his favorite targets has been tight end Mo Alley-Cox, who's averaging 18 yards of reception and has 181 total receiving yards on the season. Also can't forget about Nyheim Hines, who leads the club in receptions with 13 catches out of the backfield and a score. Indy's averaging 28 points a game and rushing for nearly $120. But it's not all about offense in Indy. Their defense has been playing pretty tough as well. Their D is in the top 3 in fewest yards allowed per play, top 3 in fewest pass yards allowed per game as well. The Colts are giving up just 15 points a game, and they're holding their opponents to less than 135 yards through the air. Darius Leonard is leading the club in tackles with 27. Justin Houston has 2.5 sacks. Meanwhile, TJ Carey and Xavier Rhodes both have a pair of interceptions on the year in this Indianapolis secondary. Indy with 6 total interceptions as a defensive unit as well. Now, total-wise, the Colts' last 2 straight stayed under the posted number. They rank in the top 3 in fewest third-quarter points allowed. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, we're looking at a Chicago Bears team who ranks in the top 10 in fewest points allowed per game themselves. So with all that said and done, give me the Indianapolis Colts minus 2.5 and the under 45 in that game. Next contest, Saints-Lions, 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff at Ford Field in Detroit. The Saints are minus 4 on the road, totals 54. And if you like the Lions in an upset, they're plus $1.75 to win it. But despite their upset win this past Sunday over the Cardinals, Detroit still lost 2 of 3 on the year, and they failed to cover the number in 2 of those contests as well. Now the Detroit Lions are, their leading rusher is an aging Adrian Peterson, who hasn't scored a touchdown on the ground yet. And passing-wise, Matthew Stafford's completing just 62% of his passes, and he's been sacked 9 times already. This Lions defense is also giving up 31 points a game, and they allowed over 135 yards on the ground per contest on average. The Lions are in the top 3 defensively in most third-quarter points allowed. Trufant, Moore, and Bryan are all listed as questionable for this Lions club. Meanwhile, the Saints on the other side, they are averaging nearly 30 points a game, and they rank in the top 10 in the league in yards per play. And despite his many critics this season, Drew Brees has completed 70% of his passes, and he's thrown for 6 touchdowns. He's also been sacked just 3 times. Alvin Kamara has been his favorite target out of the backfield, 27 catches for 285 and 3 scores. Kamara's also gained 153 yards on the ground and ran it in 3 times as well. Meanwhile, defensively, believe it or not, this New Orleans defense, although a lot of people aren't talking about them much, they do rank in the top 10 in fewest rush yards per game as well. Safety Malcolm Jenkins has 22 tackles on the season, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. Demario Davis also has 21 tackles, couple of sacks, 3 tackles for loss himself. The Saints offensively rank in the top 10 in second quarter scoring. Now, you do want to keep an eye on one of Brees' favorite targets, and that's tight end Jared Cook. He's been listed as questionable with an ankle. Now, Onyemata, Pete, Davenport, and Hansen are all questionable as well. There is a small chance that we could see a Michael Thomas sighting back in action here this Sunday, so keep an eye on that as well. Now, total-wise, the Saints are 3-0 to the over thus far in the season. We're looking at 61 total points a game on average for these New Orleans contests. 2 out of the Lions' last 3 on the other side of things also got over the number themselves. Give me the New Orleans Saints minus 4 and the over 54 in that game. All right, next matchup, it is going to be Vikings Texans, 1 p.m. Eastern start time. The Texans are the 4-point favorite, totals 54.5. Minnesota's plus $1.60 for an outright win. Now the Vikings are coming off a nice cover against the Titans. Couldn't quite get the outright win, but they were able to get the job done against the number. Now, Minnesota ranks in the top 5 in yards per play. They're also in the top 10 in rushing. The Vikings average nearly $150 on the ground per game. Dalvin Cook's averaging 6.1 yards per carry, and he has 4 rushing touchdowns on the year. Minnesota's also averaging 25 points a game, and they hung up 30 points or more twice already this season. Now keep an eye on Dantzler and Hughes, as both men are questionable for Sunday. They are taking on a Houston squad who's also winless on the season. They're 0-3 straight up, 0-3 against the spread. Houston's given up 28 points or more in all 3 of their outings. They're also allowing nearly 190 yards per game on the ground. Now the Texans are officially giving up 32 points a game, and they rank in the bottom 3 in defensive time of possession. Meanwhile, the offense is scoring just 19 points a game, and they're rushing for just over 65 yards per contest. That is it. Now, their leading rusher, David Johnson, is averaging less than 3.9 yards per carry. He's also questionable for this Sunday's action. And, of course, can't forget about Deshaun Watson, who's been sacked a staggering 13 times already on the year. He's thrown 3 interceptions on top of that as well. And when it comes to the total in this one, Houston's coming off a 28-21 loss to Pittsburgh that got over the posted number. Meanwhile, 2 out of the Texans' 3 contests on the season got over the total as well. Now, the Vikings, on the other side, they saw 2 out of their 3 contests on the season themselves get over the number. So with all that said and done, give me the Underdog Vikings +4 and the over 54.5 in that contest. Next matchup, it is going to be Ravens, Washington, 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff. The Ravens are -13, totals 47. The Ravens are 2-1 on the season despite a tough loss to Kansas City last night. Baltimore's also successfully covered the number in 2 out of those 3 contests. They are in the top 5 in the NFL in scoring on average per game, top 5 in rushing. Lamar Jackson's rushed for 182 yards on the season. Edwards and Ingram both have over 110 yards on the ground apiece themselves. And rookie J.K. Dobbins, great in short yard situations. He's rushed it in twice thus far in the season as well. Lamar's completing nearly 70% of his passes, and he has 5 touchdowns through the air. Mark Andrews, the big tight end, he's caught the ball 9 times for 109 yards and a couple of scores. And despite, once again, a tough outing against the Chiefs, this Baltimore defense is still giving up just 18 points a game, and they rank in the top 5 in fewest fourth quarter points allowed. Chuck Clark leads the D in tackles with 22. He's also forced a couple of fumbles as well. And rookie Patrick Queen, this guy is all over the field. He has 21 tackles on the season as well, 1 forced fumble and a sack for Pat. They are taking on a Washington club who lost their last 2 straight. Really not competitive. I don't want to say not competitive, but they haven't been in it. They lost their last 2 straight, and they gave up 64 total points in those contests. The football team has failed to cover the point spread in their last 2 straight as well, and they rank in the bottom 3 in yards per play. This Washington offense is also throwing it for less than $1.90 a game, and they rank in the bottom 3 in first quarter scoring. Dwayne Haskins is completing a pitiful 56% of his passes for less than 210 yards a game. He's also thrown 3 picks and have been sacked 10 times already. The Washington football team has also scored just 2 touchdowns on the ground this season. Now defensively, they're giving up 27 points a game, and they're allowing $1.25 rushing on the ground. Now Inman, Holcomb, Young, and Charles are all questionable. Some big names there. Sheriff and Foster still out on the IR, and Ioannidis out for the season this past week with a shredded biceps. Just tore that thing apart. Now, total-wise, a lot of points to ask out of this Washington offense. They saw their Week 2 matchup against a mobile quarterback stay under the total as well. Meanwhile, the Ravens on the other side, they are a perfect 3-0 to the under thus far for the season. So with all that said and done, give me the Ravens -13 and the under 47 in that game. Next and final matchup for the show, it is going to be Seahawks Dolphins, 1 p.m. Eastern start time at the Hard Rock. The Seahawks are the 6.5-point favorite on the road. Totals 54.5. The Fins are +250 for an upset victory. Now the Dolphins are just 1-2 on the season, top 5 in the league in most yards allowed per play. They're also allowing nearly 270 yards per game through the air. Meanwhile, offensively, Miami's ranking in the bottom 10 in yards per play. They're taking on a Seattle team who's scoring 37 points a game and throwing for nearly 300 yards per contest as well. The 3-0 Seahawks have also gone a perfect 3-0 against the spread in those games as well. Russell Wilson's completing just a remarkable 77% of his passes, 925 total yards, and 14 touchdowns. Tyler Lockett's caught the ball 24 times for 259 and 4 scores. Meanwhile, DK Metcalf's caught a dozen balls for 297 and 3 touchdowns himself. Keep an eye on running back Chris Carson as he's battling a knee injury. He's rushed for $157 and caught 3 touchdowns out of the backfield. The Seahawks are averaging nearly 7 yards per play, and they rank in the top 3 in first quarter scoring. Thorpe, Dunbar, Ogbui, Adams, Hill, and Lewis are all questionable. Linebacker Bruce Irvin's out for the season. Now, total-wise, Seattle's gone 3-0 to the over thus far for the year. They've also scored 35 points or more in all of their games. They also gave up 25 points or more in all of their games as well. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, on the other side of things, they saw their Week 2 matchup against Buffalo fly nearly 20 points above the posted number themselves. So with all that said and done, give me the Seattle Seahawks -6.5 in the over, 54 and a hook in that game. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. If you guys decide to get a package here today on Patreon, just keep in mind, we'll bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, happy Tuesday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.